Hello everyone, welcome to another time-lapse sketching tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to sketch this street scene, which I believe is somewhere in Turkey. You can download the reference photo from the video description below. And this is a one-point perspective scene, so it would be very helpful to find out where the vanishing point is before you start drawing, because it's really going to help you draw faster and more accurately. So this photo seems to be taken during the evening time, and the cast shadows are not that obvious. It's difficult to see some of the details in the darker or shadow areas, so for those areas we will use our artistic license to add the details. Because this scene is quite detailed, I'm actually using my pencil to draft out the composition first. Actually, the composition has already been fixed because this is a photograph. But if you are drawing on location, it would be very useful and helpful to draft out the composition first, just so that you can fit all the elements you want to draw in the scene. So for this sketch, I actually started by drawing the line in the middle, the line that represents the left edge of the building. This is to separate the piece of paper, the canvas, from the left and the right side, so that I can draw the right side first, so that I can draw the details within the right side. And I use that line in the middle as some sort of boundary so that I don't draw outside of that boundary. So here you can see me draw all the little details. For the diagonal lines I just drew, I'm actually drawing them based on observation and knowledge of perspective. So I'm drawing the diagonal lines to the vanishing point. You can see the vanishing point on the paper. It's marked with that little black dot there. So when I draw the diagonal lines that are affected by perspective, by the vanishing point, I just draw those diagonal lines to the vanishing point. And you can see my hand movement, it's always kind of moving towards the vanishing point. That's me trying to draw those diagonal lines with the correct angle. And finding the vanishing point in this case is very helpful, because otherwise you will have to draw those diagonal lines based on observation skills. And some of the angles are kind of tricky to draw if you really want to draw them just based on observation skills. Now the building on the left side actually is not facing the buildings on the right side directly. Even though this is a single point perspective scene, the buildings on the left side actually have a slightly different vanishing point. So when drawing, you have to find that second vanishing point as well. So this is me drawing the buildings in the background, the buildings between the left and the right side. There are some people on the street. Now this photo was taken with the camera at the horizon line, and this horizon line intersects all the heads of the people. So if you need to add more people in the scene, make sure to draw all those people with the heads on the horizon line. And if you look at sketches drawn with the help of reference photos, you can sort of guess, you sort of know that those sketches were drawn from reference photos based on the perspective, based on the viewpoint. This is actually a wonderful reference photo to work with because the vertical lines for the buildings are perfectly vertical. And it's difficult to take a photo like this because usually when you are standing on the street, you're pointing your camera upwards so that you can capture the taller parts of the building. The vertical lines of the buildings will be slanted. But as you can see in this photo, those vertical lines, they are perfectly vertical. So after you have drawn the big shapes on the on the right side and then the left side, you can fill in the details within those shapes. And if you run out of space to draw the details, you can just leave them out, because otherwise the scene can get too busy. This looks like evening time. If you know the sun is going to set soon, it would be good to take a reference photo before you start sketching. In case the sun sets earlier than you expected, at least you can still work with your reference photo back at home or back in the hotel if you are traveling. And if you are traveling, it would be good to ask the residents or the shopkeepers around to find out what time the sun sets, so that you can plan your trip, your sketching trips, based on how much daylight you have. And also ask about the weather, like how hot it is during the afternoon, because if it's really hot, the sketching experience will be unpleasant. So the best time to sketch is actually in the morning. However, I know many people can't wake up early in the morning to go out to sketch, but that's actually the best time to sketch. In the morning, it's much cooler and you get long shadows as well, and the lighting isn't that harsh. In the afternoon, it's hot and you get very strong shadows, and the shadows are top down, so you don't get the long shadows. And during the evening time, it's also hot because the streets they have been baking for the whole day, so it's hot during the evening. So the best time to sketch is actually in the morning. So here I have painted a light wash over all the areas that are supposed to have colors. I've mixed this light wash with probably I cannot remember the colors, but it's definitely some yellow and a warm red, because I prefer warm reds. Next, I'm adding the stronger colors, the more vibrant colors. It's either warm red or transparent pyro orange. Oh, for the blue, it's Indanthrone Blue, because for this scene, there are many areas with high contrast and certain areas are almost black. So with Indanthrone Blue, you can make something that is black, that looks like black. You can also use Phthalo Blue, but I prefer to use Indanthrone Blue in this case because, well, I just want to try something different. You can use Ultramarine as well, but it's not as easy to mix a darker value compared to Indanthrone Blue with Ultramarine. So with this sketch, I painted the initial wash, which is a mix of yellow and red, and I added the vibrant colors, dashes of colors, red, yellow, and blue, to paint the items that are on sale at the shops. And then I painted the shadow layer. So this is actually not a very complicated sketch to paint. I'm using a very limited color palette for this sketch, and I'm also not mixing or using many secondary colors such as orange, purple, and green. So all the colors that you see are mostly primary colors, yellow, red, and blue, and I mix those primary colors with some other colors to make them less glaring. And using a limited color palette in this case makes it much easier to paint this scene because there are many things going on. Using a limited color palette is the safest choice when it comes to painting scenes, especially when you're outdoors. You may be affected by the weather, so you don't really want to think that much when it comes to color mixing. You just want to draw, paint, and escape back into the hotel room for the air conditioning. So for the much darker areas, I just mixed that with Indanthrone Blue and a warm red. So this is me painting the third or fourth layer just to create the contrast And once you get the contrast, you will start to see the physical form of the elements in the scene. There is actually light passing through between the legs of those 3 people on the street, so I want to show the light passing through, and earlier I didn't show that as clearly. So that's one little detail that's good to add. And now I'm enhancing or increasing the contrast in certain areas just to make the highlighted areas, the clothes there, stand out more. If you feel like your sketch is lacking in contrast, just add more contrast. You can create contrast with light against dark, dark against light. You can also create color contrast by using complementary colors. There are many ways to create contrast. And now I'm just using the Posca markers to add more details, such as the text on the signboards, using the white to add highlights. It's easier to use Posca markers compared to watercolor for adding certain details, especially if you want opaque details. So this is how the sketch looks. By the way, this is the condensed version of the full-length tutorial that I have created for my patrons. I took maybe 1.5 hours to draw and sketch this. So if you want to check out the full-length tutorial, consider supporting me on Patreon. Your support on Patreon allows me to create more tutorials such as this one that you are watching, and also other videos and content that I have on my YouTube channel and my blog. So a big thanks to all my patrons who made this possible. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video. Bye.